Righty then, it's been a very interesting pre-season. If you had to just sort of like list things that had happened, you're going to go, Jesus, it's burning down. You got Cristiano Ronaldo, our senior striker, our superstar striker, if you want, once out. You've had our only other striker is now injured. You've had a ridiculous transfer saga with De Jong, our number one target, not managed to sign him. The talk is he wants to go to Chelsea. But it's been pretty good. Like, despite those things, it's actually been all right. I mean, it's like we're playing a new style of football. We look like we're playing very energetic style of play. We're seeing all of those sorts of negatives have seemingly not managed to affect how we perform on the pitch, which is a massive positive. And you've got to think that with a couple more weeks to go, obviously Martinez will settle, Eriksen will settle. You assume there's one or two more still to come in, which might make it a pretty good window. The manager has been responsible for that new style of play. The players seemingly have bought not just into that, but into him, which is a massive bonus. He's out here stamping authority all over the place. But let's look at what we've learned about Ten Hag since he joined the club. Number one, then, he is demanding. And this should be a prerequisite. And I think all managers at some level are demanding, but Ten Hag definitely fits into the demanding sort of category. He is the boss. He's come in, he's gone, changing those two dugouts around. Seemingly something so trivial, it's important to him, and he's changed it. Openly criticised Ronaldo and the others that left Old Trafford early against Rayo Vallecano. Clearly wants De Jong, isn't allowing the club to give up on him. He is the boss and people are listening to him. He's not being undermined, certainly not yet at least, which it might happen, but seemingly isn't the case. Discipline issues have been dealt with swiftly and quite severely by the sounds of it on the tour. He's demanding on the training field. We've seen little leaks of that where he's not afraid to dress somebody down in front of the entire squad. The fact that we've been playing Ten Hag ball in our first few preseason games shows how demanding he's been in training. For anyone who went and had a look at the adaptation it took, I took Ajax a few months, so I wouldn't think we're anywhere close to the finished article just yet. Ragnick couldn't get him playing like this. Ollie did manage to get him playing like this in his first 6 months. It's whether or not we can see Ten Hag press and sustain this run of good form beyond what we saw Ollie do and make it permanent. Delo has come out and mentioned he is very demanding. He pays a lot of attention to detail, which is good, and the small details can make a difference in the long run. Totally agree. Number two, he's level-headed. Ten Hag appears to be one of the most stoic individuals at the club at the moment. He seems very well thought out. He doesn't seem to react. He takes a lot in, chooses his words quite carefully, and when you assess his facial expressions and his body language on the touchline in the interviews, he's quite eloquent. He's definitely honest. He seems to trust the youth in the team. Iqbal, Savage, Garnacho have all been exceptional in pre-season, and I would assume they're going to be around the first team squad this year. He's handled the Ronaldo saga perfectly so far. That could have been a serious spanner in the works that completely derailed the preparation for the season. He's not allowed that. He doesn't ever really seem to get too high or too low on good or bad performances. He seems very even-keeled, just knows that the level he's demanding from the players is there. He has got a calmness about the way he materializes stuff, and I think that's going to feed into the team being confident, being self-assured, and being aware of the job that they need to do. And I think that level-headedness is translating into the team. We do more composed on the whole. Number three, character. I think he's brought a bit of a breath of fresh air since his arrival, and every single player has been given a clean slate during pre-season. Some players look destined for the door. That's been turned around a little bit. Players like Martial, maybe even Baye, those players look like they were destined to go, but I would think at least Tony Marshall might stay now. Delo looked like he was probably destined to go. He might end up getting stuck around. He's got rid of a few players already. It's clear that there's a few more that need to go, but he's keeping what's good and getting rid of what's bad. He's been quite ruthlessly going through the side and deciding who's going to stick around, who's not going to stick around. And I like it. I really like what he's been doing. Before, tactician. We knew this before he came here, so I don't know if we call this a learnt, but he has implemented a clear philosophy and strategy, and he's done so quicker than I thought it would be able to do. Now, obviously, doing it in the Premier League, we will find out from this weekend whether or not it's effective in the Premier League or if it was just a pre-season blip that we've had. But we will definitely find out this weekend. United have been playing a high line, took it in narrow, and we're defending. The press being led by the striker, which has been Martial, which if you'd have asked me a month ago, do I think he's going to do it? I'd have said no. Two wingers have followed when pressing the opposition. Midfielders stepped up. It's helped the attack. We are playing football through there. When we're pressing high, we are obviously vulnerable to counter-attacks, and a ball in behind is a cause for concern. But when I saw how Martinez was dealing with that sort of concern was somewhat alleviated. He's buying players to fit the system that he wants to play. When you've got quick, aware players, you can play those sorts of high lines. Those players exist. They're out there. Not every single player is going to suit the system. Some of the players we currently have on the books at the club will be unsuited to the system. If he's allowed to, he will move those players on, and he will bring in players that fit that system. We need to see him, and this is something that I didn't see under Ragnick, and something that we actually saw under Ollie, and he didn't get any credit for it, because people just say, oh, he played on the counter-attack. He got results. Under Solskjaer, which was not the case under Mourinho, who previously at one point was this master tactician. Under Mourinho, United didn't really win the big games. We won a cup final, or a couple of cup finals, but you wouldn't go to Anfield and you wouldn't go to the Etihad thinking Manchester United can get a win. You wouldn't. Whereas under Solskjaer, you go, ooh, we might nick it. Yeah, we know how we're going to play. We're going to play off the back foot. We're going to try and hit them on the counter, but we're going to try and do it. And we would try and do it. Now, for me, Ten Hag is going to have the same sort of mentality as Solskjaer. We cannot currently go toe-to-toe with Manchester City or Liverpool. That would be absolutely bonkers for me to sit here and say, yeah, let's just go to Anfield and twat them. It's not going to happen. So you have to come up with a tactical way to be able to get 3 points in that sort of game, right? If he's able to do that, that's when we can start really calling him a tactician. If we come up with a better way to win the games against teams that are going to low block against us, those bottom 7 or 8 teams in the league, Ollie struggled with that. If we can start playing very expansive football, that's going to allow us to get 3 points in those games, and then we can be hard to beat and even nick a few wins against the top 6, we'll be in a really good spot. And number 5, expectations. We have a reasonably high expectation. I'm sort of hoping we come 4th because I probably think we're going to finish 5th, but I'm hoping we're coming 4th because that would be a real validation of what Ten Hag's doing, and I want him to be given the backing to continue to take us into the next levels. And I think if he only comes 5th, I worry that the Glazers will just do what they did to Ollie and Jose in their second seasons, or just screw them a little bit. Although I think Ten Hag understands the task at hand, which is restore Manchester United to being a title-winning side, I think he realises there is a lot of work to do. And if he doesn't, he's in the shit. He needs to carefully create a squad that is able to implement his ideas on the training ground and then out onto the pitch. He seemingly identified players that have worked from the past that he trusts, players that he's known from local leagues like Malacia. He expects players to buy into his methods, which is a reasonable expectation. His chasing of De Jong shows he knows exactly what he wants to put into that squad to accelerate the process by bedding in players that are familiar with that system. And he's going to expect the whole squad to be at the required levels of both fitness and adherence to the plan so they can implement the high-intensity defensive press and patient attacking build-up play. He's going to want all of those things. But what are the KPIs for him to stay in his job? What are the metrics he needs to hit for him to be given the time, the patience, and the resources to continue? It's almost like a video game, I think, being the manager of a Premier League team. You're going to have to hit certain checkpoints at certain times to continue the race. It's like an old school arcade racing game. You've got to be able to hit certain checkpoints at certain times whilst also building on the fly. It's building a house while it's driving down the motorway. It's an incredibly difficult job. And there's other people in houses building them and driving them down the motorway as well. And some people started a lot further up than you, and some started from behind you. And some people have got bigger engines and some have got smaller engines. And, you know, there's so many moving parts and moving factors in this. It's an incredibly difficult ask, and the scrutiny will be like no other. I don't know if you saw the other day the most abused players on social media over the course of the last season. I think out of the 10, 9 or 8 of them were Manchester United players. I think it was 8 Manchester United players in there. I think it was only Kane and Sterling that weren't United players that was in there. The rest were United players. Lingard, Fred, Rashford, Maguire. That tells you the scrutiny that exists around Manchester United is incomparable to that of anywhere else. And that alone is a factor. That alone is a factor in the pressure that exists. Got to get behind the guy. This guy, more than anybody else that we've had, looks like he could deliver the long-term successful plan to Manchester United. Moyes was never cut out for it. Louis had arguably done this job 15 years before he got to us. It wasn't the right time and he wasn't the right man. Jose was already over the hill by the time he got to us and already bitter and over the hill. Ralph was only ever temporary. And Ollie was a romantic appointment that we hoped would be more successful than it turned out to be. But he had no track record of building a club to compete on the European stage. Ten Hag does. And he's a coach. He's a football coach on the football pitch. Which is more than I think we've had for the lot since Rennie Mullenstein left the club. I don't think we've had anyone fulfill that role since Rennie Mullenstein left the club. But that's what we have now. And it might be a bit more of a modern approach than United have had over the last decade. It might also be needed. I am cautiously optimistic. He might need to wait out the likes of Klopp and Pep. He might need to wait for their cycles to come to an end, however you take that word. And he might just be in the right place at the right time, a bit like Klopp was. We will see. Let's hope he can do it. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.